Your team's best starter is only good as your worst one. Net wins reveals who's carrying their roster and who's dragging it down. Every team has one, the guy in the starting lineup who makes you wonder how he got there. And every team has the guy on the other end, the reason you watch, the player keeping the franchise afloat. The gap between those two players tells you almost everything about a team's ceiling. This week I ran the numbers on every team's starting five, pulling the best net wins and worst net wins from the top 5 minute earners on each roster. The results tell a pretty clear story about which teams are built for the long haul and which ones are paper contenders held together with duct tape. The best star is the player with the highest net wins among the top 5 minute earners. The worst is the lowest. Let's get to it. The most useful signal in this data isn't who the best player is. Most of us already know that. It's the floor. A team where even the fifth best starter is producing meaningful net wins is a team with genuine depth and structural balance. These are the squads that don't fall apart when the star sits. The New York Knicks stand out immediately here. Karl Anthony Towns led the team at 9.4, which is excellent, but the number that matters more is OG Anunoby at 5.6, the highest worst starter mark in the entire league. That's a starting unit with the least productive member is still a legitimate NBA contributor by this metric. When your floor is OG, your ceiling is serious. Houston Rockets tell a similar story, and this one's genuinely surprising given the roster construction. Kevin Durant led at 9.9, a figure that will raise eyebrows given where he's playing. And Reed Shepard, the worst starter by net wins, still clocked in at 5.1. That's a team where everyone in the starting five is pulling positive weight. The Charlotte Hornets are the underrated entry in this category. Con Newpel led at 6.3, which isn't headline grabbing, but Brandon Miller at 4.7 as the worst starter means Charlotte's floor is higher than most people give them credit for. This is a young team with more structural balance than its record might suggest. Detroit Pistons have Duncan Robinson as their worst starter at 4.5, with Jalen Duren leading at 10.1. When the Pistons are one of the league's more balanced starting five, something interesting is happening in that rebuild. Some teams live and die by the top player. When that player is transcendent, it can carry a roster to places it has no business reaching. When he's out, the whole thing collapses. Net wins is honest about this dynamic. Denver Nuggets and Oklahoma City Thunder are tied at the top with 13.1 net wins from their best starters, Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, respectively. Two of the three best players in the league today by this metric and by most others, and neither team should surprise anyone with that number. The Spurs, with Wemby at 11.4, he's a second-year player doing second-year player things, which apparently means cracking the top three in the league by net wins. The worst starter, Harrison Barnes, at 4.3. What Wemby's doing at 21 years old is historically unusual. The Mavericks are the cautionary tale buried in this tear. Cooper Flagg led the team at 4 net wins as the best starter, and that's a problem because the more alarming number is Klay Thompson at 1.5. That's a starting lineup with almost no meaningful production outside one player, and that player's a rookie who's probably going to be great someday, but isn't there yet. Dallas acquired Flagg in unusual circumstances, isn't paying for the rebuild in real time. These are the teams where star number looks impressive, but the worst star number reveals a structural crack. The Lakers have Luka at 11.1, elite, legitimately elite, but Rui Hachimura as the worst starter at 3.7 means the gap between the top and bottom of the starting five is enormous. This is the team that lives on Luka's brilliance and holds its breath the rest of the time. The Atlanta Hawks follow the same pattern. Jalen Johnson at 9.1 is a breakout level performance, but Zachary Researcher at 2.5 at the floor is concerning. He was a rookie 2 years ago, so context matters, but 2.5 net wins from a starter is the liability the opposing team will find. The Cavaliers have Donovan Mitchell at 8.7, which is star caliber. Sam Merrill at 2.7 is the worst starter, and that gap's wide enough to get exploited in a playoff series, and was. The Orlando Magic present an interesting case. Paulo Banchero led at 7.6, and Franz Wagner, who many consider a co-star, is the worst starter at 3. That's not a condemnation of Wagner, who's had a complicated season, but it does illustrate how heavily Orlando leaned on Banchero when Wagner wasn't right. The Sixers with Tyrese Maxey at 8.5 is a genuine number. Kelly Oubre Jr. at 3 as the worst star explains why this team's been living on the edge of the playoff picture all year. Then there were the teams where even the best starter isn't producing at a level that inspires confidence. These are the franchises in genuine trouble, not rebuilding with a planned trouble, but adrift in awaiting trouble. The Brooklyn Nets with Nick Claxton at 2.8 leading the team in net wins from the starting five. Drake Powell at 0.8 as the worst. There's no other way to say this. The Nets have one of the lowest best star numbers in the league. This is a roster in full teardown mode, and the numbers confirm it. The Pacers with Pascal Siakam at 2.7 is alarming for A player of his reputation, Ben Shepherd at 0.9 as the floor compounds it. Indiana was a fun team not long ago. Right now, the starting lineup's not generating meaningful net wins from anyone. The Grizzlies with Cam Spencer at 2.7 as the best starter, Jalen Wells at 1.7 as the worst. This is a team needing a healthy return to form from Ja Morant. The Utah Jazz had Keontae George at 2.5 leading the team, Cody Williams at 1.2 as the floor. Utah's in a defined rebuild, and these numbers reflect that honestly. The question is whether the young players developing toward better numbers or just accruing minutes. The Wizards with Alex Sarr at 1.7 as their best starter is the most striking number in the entire data set. Trey Johnson at 1 is as the worst. Washington's playing development basketball and calling it NBA games, which is probably the right long-term strategy, but it's not a fun product to watch right now. The Golden State Warriors deserve a section of their own because the numbers are genuinely confusing for a franchise of their stature. Brandon Podziemski led the starting five with 4.7 net wins. Will Richard is the worst at 1.7. This is a team that won 4 championships in the last decade, and right now the best net wins from a starter belongs to Brandon P. That's not a criticism of Brandon, who's a legitimate player. It's a statement about how dramatically this roster's aged and depleted. The dynasty's over. The numbers say so plainly. The takeaway is the average best starter net wins across the league is 6.97. If your team's top starter is below 5, you have a ceiling problem. The average worst starter is 2.85. If your team's floor is below 2, you have a depth problem. Teams with both a high ceiling and a high floor, New York, Houston, Detroit, Spurs, Boston, are the ones most likely to be standing in late April. Teams with a high ceiling and a low floor, the Lakers, Atlanta, the Clippers are the wildcard franchises that look dangerous on paper and fragile in practice, and the teams with low ceilings across the board are just waiting for the next draft season. Net Wins is an original statistic developed at netwins.substack.com. Net Wins formula and all written content are original works. All rights reserved. Database can be accessed at willf123 at github.io/NBA-net-wins. Thank you.